This is Gus Summers, and you're watching In-Show Celebrities. This is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. This week, we have one of Hollywood's most iconic actors. He's actually a living legend, Sir Sean Connery. This delightful and talented man started off as a young man in Scotland who joined the Naval Academy. After finishing that tour, he went into doing odd jobs and then fell in love with bodybuilding. He actually competed in the Mr. Universe contest. And not only that, he was a tremendous athlete. He could have gone and become professional in what we call soccer, but deciding that his career would be done too quickly because he knew by the age of 30 you were already done, and he was already 23 years old. He actually started to do some odd jobs in a local theater, and then those turned into bit parts, and with each play that passed, the parts got larger and larger. And after a while, he decided this was the career that was meant for him. Well, as he pursued his acting career, he got larger parts in plays. He even got small television spots, and of course, those grew into small and large feature film leads. And then ultimately would come the audition that would change his life forever. He, of course, would audition and get the lead, the James Bond films. He would go on to helm 7 James Bond, and each and every one would become more successful and make him more recognizable throughout the entire world. Of course, he did so many other films that he's well known for, and even won an Academy Award for his portrayal of an Irish police officer in The Untouchables. Of course, that was just the beginning of a career that has spanned 60 years, even into the point of now being able just to enjoy the fruits of his labor and retire. Amazing talent. Well, first up is one of those James Bond films. There's so many to choose from, but of course, because I choose the films that I enjoy and love to watch, I actually had to flip a coin to see which one of these great James Bond movies I was going to review. Well, the film I chose was Thunderball. Of course, as we know, he plays James Bond. You know, the jet-setting secret agent that gets the job done while romancing all the ladies and taking care of the bad guys. Well, in this particular case, you find that the film starts that he's actually in a comfortable setting. It's like a vacation resort for him to unwind. So he's supposed to be there just relaxing, relieving stress, and into his lap falls murder, intrigue, international chaos, the whole bit. What you find out is that Spectre, of course, you know, the nemesis to MI6, have developed a plan to extort almost $300 million from all the NATO countries. Their plan is to have someone impersonate a pilot and then have them crash land the plane with 2 nuclear bombs on board, and they're going to take possession of it and then threaten their launch to any of the NATO countries if they don't pay up. So what you find is, while Sean Connery is at the resort, he sees a person being brought in, a body who he later learns is actually the pilot who should have been on the plane. But because of planning and such by Spectre, you realize that there was an impersonator who took the pilot's place and crash landed the plane, and they ended up getting the bombs. Well, you have, of course, Blofeld, who's the leader of Spectre, but you have his number two, which he's called number two. His name is Largo. Another great actor. He's one of the best villains in the Bond series. He's Adolfo Ciali, and he has a patch on his eye, and he is the main villain. He's the one you see throughout the entire film. After James Bond learns that the planes have been hijacked, he puts two and two together. He sees pictures in his file that is for him to review, and he tells him, I saw this person, he was dead. I think I need to go look for his sister, because she is in a particular place, and I think she would know where her brother's at. He's actually the dead pilot, and so no one knows where he's at. But James Bond says, he's dead. That much I know. But I need to follow this particular lead. The sister, another delightful actress. Her name is Domino, and she's portrayed by Claudine Aguirre, and she is the mistress of Largo. And so James Bond, goes and starts, romancing her and trying to get information. Well, what I love about this particular film is that this is one of the films where James Bond just goes in and announces himself, and everyone knows that why he's there and who he is. Largo and Domino are playing cards, and James Bond comes in and he's saying, Spectre and all this such, and of course Largo knows what he's talking about, and then right off it's this cat and mouse, but it's not a cat and mouse game because they know who each other are, and you are wondering, well, how's this going to play out, since they know that Largo's part of Spectre and James Bond's an agent, so you're wondering how this is going to play out. Well, there's another female who's a part of Spectre, Fiona. Again, another beauty of all the James Bond ladies, Luciana Paluzzi, and she is basically neck deep with Spectre, and Largo counts on her to take care of business. So she knows about James Bond, and she is pretending again not to know who he is, but he knows who she is, and he suspects of course he knows that she knows who he is. So you have all these cast of characters being part of the storyline of trying to find where these nuclear devices are. Of course, you have another character, which is Felix. He's the CIA agent who's in all the James Bond movies. In this particular one, he's portrayed by Rick Van Nutter. He's a friend of James, and he gives him information, and they work with each other because, of course, United States, Britain, and are part of NATO, so they're helping each other trying to figure this out. And again, I should mention one other character in the whole film. Of course, we have Q, and he's portrayed by Desmond Llewellyn. And what's wonderful about Desmond Llewellyn is that he was the only Q from the first James Bond until the time of his death. So he was the only one until later John Cleese took over, but he was the only James Q throughout all the James Bonds with Sean Connery, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, up to Pierce Brosnan. So it was great. It was great seeing him. So again, the film, they all know about each other, and they know that James Bond's looking for the device. They have the device. They're waiting for the money, and they're each playing cat and mouse. And what again, one of the things that I love about the movie is that even if you've seen it, you still get caught up in the story, and it's like 2 hours plus, and you still are drawn into it. The scenes don't get boring. The acting is great, and so it's a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, or if you've seen it dozens of times, it always draws you in. And one little tidbit about this particular film, it was actually remade again in the 80s by Sean Connery, and we know it as Never Say Never Again. They were able to take that one story and do it again. Fantastic. A great film, and even that one, that was kind of like a non-sanctioned James Bond, because the script writer had the rights to this one film. He said, "Hey, why don't we do it again? Let's do it again with Sean Connery," and it was a huge hit. Fantastic film. Well, next up, is a film that again, it was after his Oscar win, and he had like this career that would is constantly going and soon shoot up, and constantly going and then shoot up again. And of all these films I could have chosen, I was like I was really torn, because there were so many great films. But again, I chose the ones that I like to go back to over and over again. And this particular film, again, another great film. The movie, The Hunt for Red October. He plays Captain Ramius, and he's the captain of a new submarine. So you have him, getting ready to the ship. You have all his crew starting to get on board. You had another great, fantastic actor plays his second, Captain Borland, his second in command, Sam Neill. Again, fantastic actor. And then you also have Dr. Petrov, Tim Curry. I love Tim Curry. This is like one of the normal Tim Curry roles. He's not scary, and he's not, he's not one of those, vicious creatures that that you'll see him. And he's actually playing, a nice doctor who's concerned about the crew and the captain. Great role for him. So you find out that Sean Connery has taken the ship out, and because of, of course, all sorts of spying, that the Americans know something's going on. Well, information gets back to a naval analysis played by, his name is Jack Ryan, the first incarnation of Jack Ryan. He's played by Alec Baldwin. Well, he finds out from Admiral Greer, a good friend of his, another fantastic actor, James Earl Jones. James Earl Jones tells him, "Hey, we got this information. We got to go do a briefing. You got to let them know what you think the submarine is. You got to let them know what you think is happening." Alec Baldwin and James Earl Jones go to this big staff meeting, led by, again, another great actor. They were great. Richard Jordan. I love Richard Jordan. He always had the ability to, really play those politicians, those aristocrats, those type of people who are in charge. Well, long story short, Alec Baldwin convinces Richard Jordan that there is a good possibility that it's not any type of war games or the strategic planning for war, but actually that Sean Connery may be defecting. So Richard Jordan sends Alec Baldwin out to confirm, and he has to confirm it personally, because he says he's an expert on everything that Ramius has done, Captain Ramius. So he says, "Well, you got to go find out. You got to go." So he goes from ship to ship, he hates flying. There's storms, and finally he has to go to a submarine captained by the captain's name is Captain Mancuso, played by Scott Glenn. So Scott Glenn has to go get Alec Baldwin, and Alec Baldwin's in this helicopter, huge storm, and they're saying, we can't drop you off. The storm is horrible, and they're trying to lower Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin, if I remember correctly, can't swim or doesn't swim very well, and he lets go of the harness because he has to get on that boat to get to Sean Connery. And Scott Glenn's out. What's wrong with this guy? I can't believe we're having to do this. So they get Alec Baldwin on board, and at one point they had Sean Connery, but he had to go. Scott Glenn had to turn his submarine around to go get Alec Baldwin, and the way they had detected Sean Connery was a particular pinging sound that one of the seamen had heard. And seaman, it was Seaman Jones, delightful actor, Courtney B. Vance. So Courtney B. Vance is he's like this radar geek. He loves all this stuff, and he was able to detect something, a particular ping, the way the engine sounded when they first came across Sean Connery's submarine. So they were following it. They had to break away to go get Alec Baldwin. Now they're back. Now they're looking for him. And now, during that time, Scott Glenn's orders basically is, engage, destroy, because he could be actually setting up for war because they're carrying nuclear warheads. And the whole time, Alec Baldwin is trying to convince Scott Glenn, no, he's not. He's not trying to set up for war. He's trying to defect. I'm telling you. Scott Glenn's not having any of it. Sean Connery on his end, not the entire crew. Not the entire crew. Only part of the crew knows that he is planning to defect. The officers, some in command. Most of the crew don't know, and so he's trying to put out fires. Some literal fires, but trying to calm everybody. These are just war games. We are out here testing the submarine, so don't worry. Sam Neill knows. Tim Curry doesn't know, and so he's trying to maneuver all these people, and then somehow trying to let the Americans know that he is trying to defect. Well, Jack Ryan, Alec Baldwin tells Scott Glenn, he's going to make a particular maneuver. If he does it at this time, so he's going to do it. And when he does, Scott Glenn begins to believe Alec Baldwin. So they submarines end up being side to side, and they end up pinging each other. In case you don't know, submarines are able to send out a sound which lets you know if something's out there, towards the bottom or towards the side, and it'll ping back. Ding, that way you know something. So they ping each other, and Sean Connery realizes, okay, these are friendlies. And so he pings back. Great little scene with the tension. And then, finally, Scott Glenn and Alec Baldwin, Courtney B. Vance, a couple others go on board. And when they go on board, that's when different things begin to happen. Don't want to already give a lot away, but great film, fantastic. And I love that you have such quality actors. In this one, you have Sean Connery, who was already acting for the past 30 years. Scott Glenn, who's been at it for 20 years. Courtney B. Vance, he was at it for at least 10, same with Alec Baldwin. So you have all these guys, Sam Neill, already close to 30 years. So you have these actors that are, great at their craft and give us such a large movie that could have been pulled down by bad acting, but because, they were and are who they are, they gave us such a great film. Anyways, great film, Hunt for Red October. All right, the last film, of course. I love it because here's Sean Connery in his 60s pulling off action films. Of course, I'm talking about The Rock. He plays John Mason, a British secret agent who was wrongfully or illegally incarcerated by the United States for 30 years for stealing, microfilm with a bunch of U.S. secrets. And because he didn't want to give it up, he was left in the prison to basically rot. So for 30 years. So he's sitting in prison. In the beginning of the film, what you see is you see a team of Marines break into this facility and take this type of poisonous gas. And that team is led by a great general. His name is General Hummel, portrayed great by Ed Harris. Ed Harris takes this gas, goes and invades the Rock, Alcatraz prison island, and sets up the gas with these rockets. And he's going to fire them into San Francisco if certain demands aren't met by the government. And his second in command, another great actor. He's Major Baxter, David Morris, and they and a bunch of other Marines. Another great actor who's a part of all this is Captain Darrow, Tony Todd. So you have all this group on the island and calling the government saying, we've performed, we're basically black ops. We've done all your dirty work. Many of our fellow Marines and other servicemen have died, and they've gone unrecognized. Their families have suffered emotionally and financially. So we're demanding that you take some of that black ops money and pay their families. If you don't do it by this certain time, we're going to drop one of these bombs on San Francisco. So the person who's in charge of trying to handle all this is Womack. Womack is the one that we got to get these guys, and we have to take care of this mess. Another great actor, John Spencer. So along with John Spencer, you have Agent Baxton. I thought it's one of his great roles. He always plays bad guys, but in this one he was a good guy. William Forsythe. So they're trying to determine how they figure this out. There's no way to get on the island, but they realize there's one way: to go through the tunnels underneath. And there's only one person who's ever escaped from Alcatraz going through the tunnels. Of course, John Mason, Sean Connery. And Womack doesn't want to use Sean Connery at all because he's the one that threw him in prison 30 years ago. And he's like, oh no. This guy's lethal. This guy's dangerous. If he gets out, forget it. It's over. He'll never help us and he'll escape. Well, they have to turn to Sean Connery for help because he's the only one that knows the island. In the midst of all this is another FBI agent, but he's a chemical specialist. He's the one that knows everything about this particular gas that they have attached to the rockets that can kill millions of people. He's Dr. Stanley Goodspeed, of course. The wonderful Nicolas Cage. I love him in this role because it's Nicolas Cage still, the crazy neurotic guy he is, and he fits perfect because he's a crazy neurotic biochemist. And so I forgot what he says. He goes, well, yes, no, I am like a crazy chemist, but I'm a super freak or something. I forgot what he said. Great little line. So he's the one consulting them, the FBI, CIA, John Spencer and William Forsythe about the gas and what they need to do. Well, they get Sean Connery out. They have him in a cell. Sean Connery saying, I'm not going to help you. John Spencer says, hey, Goodspeed, why don't you go in and try to convince him? So he goes in to talk to Sean Connery, and Sean Connery says, well, you're an intelligent man, so I can tell you're not a field agent. He goes, well, I'm a field agent, and what we have here is, a paper to for you to get your freedom. So you have to help us. Sean Connery says no. So they converse. You got to watch it. It's a great little scene. Nicolas Cage is like, all frantic because he's never done this before, and so Sean Connery negotiates being able to get a suite at the wardrobe or the story. I forgot where it's at. And he wants a suit, he wants a haircut, he wants all these things, lavish foods. So they agree to it. And you see before the after they agree to it, he gets the paper. Sean Connery has gotten this quarter and dropped it and cut it, and he cuts the glass. The two-way glass, and breaks it and sees Womack. He's all, Womack, I knew it was you. And, and they grab Sean Connery, they have to restrain him. But anyways, they take him to the hotel. They give him everything he wants, and what happens? He escapes. And he escapes, and he steals a Hummer, one of the original real big Hummers. And so he's driving through San Francisco, smashing and everything. And then Nicolas Cage goes after him. He's driving a Ferrari. Great chase scene. And Sean Connery just wanted to get a chance to meet his daughter before anything happens, because this is the only time that he was able to get out. So he meets his daughter. He gets captured again, gets taken back to headquarters, and there he's introduced to Commander Anderson, another great actor, Michael Biehn. He's in charge of the force that's going to basically storm Alcatraz Island. So they're wanting information, and Sean Connery says, "Well, when we're there, I'll be able to tell you." And Womack's all, John Spencer's all, "No, you're not going. You tell him." He goes, "I can't. It was all in my head. I spent months down there. I spent months, planning his days and nights trying to figure out." Everything down there. I don't have it written out. It's in my head, but it'll come back to me. So, so reluctantly, John Spencer, sends Sean Connery and forces Nicolas Cage to go because he's the only one who knows how to handle the chemicals. He goes, I can train him. He goes, no, you can't. You have to be there on the spot. And, then Nicolas Cage is on neurotic. I'm crazy. I can't go. So they all end up going, and they end up on the island. And right away, they make a mistake. And Ed Harris is there, not wanting to hurt anybody, but one of the men begin to shoot, and they kill all the men. And so now Ed Harris is like, he can't believe it, and tells the other people, he goes, "Look what you made me do. Now more brothers of ours died in vain." But of course, fantastic movie. The movie can go to over and over again. Seeing Sean Connery, fight and pull off the action scenes. But again, another fantastic movie. I could have picked, dozens of films that he has done. Wonderful dramas. He did a wonderful film called The Molly Maguires. He did another fantastic film with Audrey Hepburn, Robin and Marion. And he did one with a young Christopher Walken, the Anderson tapes. These are just a couple, not even scratching the surface of all the movies he has done. Of course, The Untouchables, were that he won his Academy Award, and all the others. Fantastic actor. Of course, like I said in the beginning, he's truly a iconic, living legend of Hollywood. Someone who's still around today, who produced some of Hollywood's greatest films. Fantastic. And blessings to him, that hopefully that he will be with us for many more years. And perhaps we'll see him in a little something else. Something we can cross our fingers for and look forward to. Well, that's what I got for you today. This is Gus Summers, and you've been watching In-Show Celebrities. And this is the time I take every Monday to talk about some of my favorite films and actors. Of course, remember, don't forget to visit us at theinshow.com every Thursday from 1 to 2 when I host The In Show. And that's when I bring on all sorts of celebrities and guests that talk about their projects or whatever it is that's on their mind. Of course, visit us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Flickr, Instagram, all those great social media sites. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.